we had was to elect the last time buy. So we have worked with our customer on the expected life of the platform and the rate of effort or the amount that he's using the equipment, and we came to a conclusion of a quantity to buy which our customer has funded, which we hold on their behalf to satisfy anticipated demands going forward. So that's probably a good example of sensing the environment, but it's not predictive. It was only reactive when the supplier told us that they were no longer intending to produce. But in that case, we had a reasonable window of opportunity to deal with it.
Thank you. That's a very good example. So in such situation where the suppliers notify you of an intention to stop producing a product, what happens next after reacting to it by through one of these three measures of reacting to such notification? What happens after that initial phase when you need more of the product for your systems?
Well, in that scenario, Ollie, we've actually purchased enough to see us through to the end of the life of the expected life of the Hawk lead-in fighter.
Oh, okay.
So we should never need to buy any more of that product. However, working with the supplier and with our parent company, which designed and produced this aircraft for other users, there is a second obsolescence outcome that is being pursued, which is for replacement of that CRT with another company that is going to take up the build of that cathode ray tube. So if we do find ourselves that the last time buy was insufficient, we know that the longer supply chain fix, which was to find another company to produce that same type of product, we do know that it's being done, but the outcome of that was expected to take 3 years. So we made the last time buy purchase about 18 months ago. Even in 18 months' time, we should expect that the alternative supply is online and we could buy for them if we needed to, but we bought enough anyway to last us until the end of life of the platform.
Okay. I was thinking it was just a short-term solution.
Now, last time buy means last time, okay? It's like, this is the last time you can get this, what do you want to do? And we've elected to buy enough to get us through our anticipated need, okay? But we've got a backup strategy, which is, well, we know that the parent company was going to do something, but it was going to take longer than we could wait.
Okay.
So we bought enough to last us for our anticipated end of life, and our anticipated end of life was 2025, okay? So if we do extend the aircraft life, then we will have a new problem, which is then, well, what we didn't buy enough to go beyond 2025, and therefore we need to then look at the backup strategy, which is we now need to get the replacement product.
Okay.
That all influence the decision. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And has there been any situation or instances in which you had to resort to new innovations as a result of such information? For example, where the CRT wasn't going to be produced anymore, has there been a need when you had to think of, or you have to look for an alternative component to use rather than the CRT? Has it spurred new innovations?
In that example, no. If I was to try and keep with that example, I do know that our parent company has worked with a supplier for a replacement alternative to that CRT, and that innovation is really being done by the new alternative supplier. We're working with them, and we're part funding that company to reproduce and to test and qualify. So the innovation is in the reproduction of the equipment type and the qualification for flight on a military aircraft. So that's probably the only innovation I can think of there. I could think of innovation in other areas of the aircraft. If I'm talking about the Hawk aircraft, the mission computer needs to be upgraded to provide the aircraft with increased capability for new aircraft pilot training. That new mission computer has meant that our supply chain for repair has been changed. We now have a new mission computer, and the equipment in the workshops that is needed to support it has therefore changed along with it. So again, the innovation that we've worked through with our supplier, the avionics equipment supplier, is to replace the old support equipment with a new piece of support equipment, quite expensive and sophisticated mission computer test and validation equipment. But we found a way of doing it with them that used an existing test set, but creating different software and test program interfaces to that existing test set, which has saved ourselves and the customer significant funds compared to what it would have been if we had to design a new test set from scratch.
Interesting. Thank you. And from all you've said, it appears that there's a lot of exchange of information between the firm and its suppliers.
Yeah.
How would you describe the extent of exchange of information?
How would I describe it? Depends on the supplier and the criticality of their equipment and supply. We don't have a large dialogue, for example, with consumable and expendable suppliers, so people that supply us with wire and glue and paint. They are commodities generally, and we have a good dialogue with them around forecasting material requirements and ordering and expediting. But the kind of information exchange I think you're referring to is more of equipment of a strategic nature, complex, big equipment. Avionics suppliers are the type that we're talking about. With those suppliers, we have some quite good, not only good relationships, but we have good supplier contracts and partnering arrangements. So some of our suppliers, and some of those which you saw today as we walked through, they are strategic partners on the program. They have in each case they have a support contract which is holistic for supply of material to performance-based measurement. They also have responsibilities for quite specific scope, responsibilities for obsolescence definition. First of all, they need to advise us of obsolescence, for example, and they need to supply us with a costed solution, so that it's not their liability in terms of cost, but they have a liability to provide us with a suggested solution to obsolescence. And that's all done under a framework of confidentiality agreement, so we do exchange information quite freely with those organisations that we have that strategic partnering arrangement with and confidentiality agreements. So they understand all of our need and forecast and usage, and we understand their information that they that provide us, which we won't supply to their competitors. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Is this arrangement a formal arrangement, or like the exchange of information on obsolescence? Is it a formal arrangement between the firm and its suppliers, or it's done out of their own will?
A bit of both, but as I said, the subcontract that I have with that particular supplier does have a clause in it which requires them to do certain things for obsolescence.
Okay.
The extent to which they do that and the effectiveness that they do it is really not just goodwill, but it is a measure of their strategic relationship with the company.
Okay.
So, not making a very good way of explaining it, but you can do some things by ticking the box, or you can do things by very good response and capable response. So we do get from those strategic suppliers some quite effective information sharing. It is facilitated by the subcontract or the contract,